Hi, I'm Chris McCoy.
And I'm Toby Sells.
We're back with the Memphis Flyer podcast. Every week we jump on here to talk about some of the stuff that we got in the paper while we're following. This week, Sunrise is our cover. Check this out. This is a physical copy. We love those physical copies, don't we?
I do love the physical copy. And I've got my own story about that. I won't bore you with that here, but I just went through this thing, and as we say at the Flyer, if this isn't the best issue we've ever done, it's the latest issue we've ever done.
It is the latest issue we've
done. But it's actually
a
Flyer. This is a Flyerific issue. There's some things here I'll share that you're only going to read in the Memphis Flyer. It's going to be great. So,
like what, Toby?
Like what? Okay, one of my favorite sentences back here. Emily Gunther writes our metaphysical connection for us. She is she's co-owner of the Broom Closet downtown. Very witchy, very all that stuff. It's fantastic. And so the headline is 3 rings. I'm like, okay, what is that? And it says, use this magical technique to protect you and your home.
Who else is bringing you this kind of
content? Are you
going to
read that in the CA?
No, you're not.
No, I mean, I love the CA, but no, I'm sorry. We got Emily Gunther. You don't. Pick up the Flyer.
That's right.
Yeah. Jam-packed with stuff. And you're going to talk about this cover. I wrote about solar 2 or 3 years ago, and I forgot. I didn't read any more about it. And I kind of got a brain full of all that stuff. And it's going to be interesting now. The changes coming with the new leader of the TVA, the Trump administration, a bunch of stuff. So we'll get into that in a minute. You want to do some news real quick? Or how do you want to do it?
Let's go ahead and talk about this.
Okay, let's talk.
So the cover story this week is by Tom Heath at the Institute. What's the name of the Institute?
Institute for Public Service Reporting over at the U of M. They do a great job.
And so solar, you wrote about solar a couple of years ago, like you were saying. One of the things with solar in Tennessee is that with like in California or a lot of other markets, you can put rooftop solar on your house.
Okay.
And if you make more energy than you need, you can sell that back to the utility. And there was a pilot program a few years ago, well, actually several years ago now, where they were doing that in TVA, and TVA nixed that.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one disadvantage that solar has in the TVA system. And there's a lot of others, too. TVA has not been pursuing solar as aggressively as as a lot of other utilities have been. And in the meantime, the price of solar has gone way down.
Oh, wow.
Yes, by some measures, it is now the cheapest energy generation technology in human history.
No way.
Yeah. Like in India, it's super cheap.
Wow.
And in China, it's super cheap. It's so cheap in Germany, and they relaxed the codes a little bit, that people are buying solar panels and just like hanging them up in their balconies of their apartments.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're in the midst of a big solar boom. And a few years ago when we replaced the Allen fossil fuel plant, which was a coal plant that provided a lot of electricity here in Memphis, when we replaced that with a natural gas plant, which is a big improvement in emissions. But a lot of people were saying, we should really be spending more money on solar at that point than going with natural gas. Because one of the things about solar is you buy the infrastructure, you get the panels, you get now the batteries,
right,
too, to store the energy at night. And that's it. You don't have to pay for fuel.
Right.
Right? Natural gas plants, whatever, maybe it's not as expensive on the front end, but you're going to be paying for fuel for the entire life cycle of that plant, and those prices are going to go up and down. Well, really, they're going to go up.
Right.
Right. So there's a lot of advantages, but also one of the things about TVA, they have, TVA was created in the first wave of the New Deal, like 1933, and it was created it's a federally owned corporation. So it's not quite a federal agency.
Yep.
And it's not quite a private agency either. And it's actually worked really well. We have some of the cheapest electricity in the country, still to this day. But it was created for a couple of reasons, mostly because it would be too expensive for private companies to electrify rural America.
Right.
Because, you'd have, especially back then, you'd have, one house and then a mile down the road there's another house, right? So you have to run all that line to get to them. And where in like our neighborhood, I've got 6 poles on my block now.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you, MLGW, by the way. Power did not go out. I want to say this good about MLGW right now. We had all that weather. We had record floods. I did not lose power once. You could have in times past. I would have anticipated half the city,
Absolutely.
and they made it through really well this time.
I cannot say loud enough how awesome that is.
Yeah,
Mine was the same way, living Cooper Young, and the wind used to blow and our power would go out enough to where our neighbor, he bought a gas generator, like a natural gas generator,
Mhm.
and it'd go out and we'd have to plug into his backyard or back porch or whatever. But we've been through all kinds of stuff, snow and ice and wind and rain, and the power has stayed on. So MLGW, thank you very much.
Under Doug McGowan.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, who has been doing, and he's also a big part of this story too.
He is, yeah.
So what Doug is doing, Doug, see, we're first name basis.
We know
now.
Doug around here. There's Doug McGowan right there. I don't know
Yeah.
how that's going to look, but anyway, good
Yeah,
dude.
Dougie, we call him.
Friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod, Dougie. He has been spearheading a what do you call it?
Tree trimming?
The tree trimming. Okay,
Mhm.
let's talk about that because that's one of the reasons that we did not lose power.
Yep.
Is because he's really emphasized the tree trimming, and we're a city of trees.
Mhm.
I was flying in one time, to Memphis, and somebody who'd never been here before, and they were like, "Where's the city?" And I was like, "It's under the trees."
Yeah.
So that's been great. That's been good, and MLGW has a long-term contract with TVA,
Yep.
right? And they are, and that means that they have to buy their power from TVA. But Doug McGowan and his folks have worked out a side agreement with TVA to allow us MLGW to build their own generation. And what that means is solar. MLGW is going to build its own solar plant.
Wow.
Right. And which is great. It's a big breakthrough, And the old contract is still in effect because there's been a lot of talk about maybe that MLGW should leave TVA
Right.
and should try to should be able to buy power from other companies who have, and some of which is, the vast majority of the new generations going in right now is renewables.
Right.
Right. Vast majority. And so rather than wait for TVA to get their act together with solar, MLGW has taken this matter in their own hands, and we're going to build a solar plant. They don't know where, but it's going to be a combination of solar and battery generation. And the pilot plant that has been out, if you're driving in Shelby Farms and you see that on Walnut Grove and you see that those solar panels over on one side, that's 110 households worth of energy right there. So, and there's lots of places. There's lots in Memphis that you could, and it's that project has been a great success. And there's lots of places in Memphis when you can put a plant that size. We got a lot of vacant lots,
right?
For one thing. Me personally, I don't know if this is in the cards, but my big thing is let's cover all the parking lots. Cover all the parking lots with solar panels. That way we get covered parking and free energy.
Yeah.
Both at the same time.
And they have that, there's a parking garage that's doing that now in the medical district down there, right off Union. You've seen it.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a great idea.
I did too. There's a lot of opportunity for that, and that's what MLGW is looking for. So that's where we're at. That it's actually good news for a change. I don't know how to act either. And then I wrote an addendum to this because after Tom had filed the story, that was when Trump removed 2 members of the TVA board.
Yep.
TVA is supposed to have a 9-member board. It was down to 6 now, and he's removed 2 of those members, so now it's down to 4. That means there's no longer a quorum, so they can't make big decisions. There's a new CEO and a new governmental relations officer, commissar, probably. But so and Blackburn, our senators, and Haggerty both came out in a letter, an op-ed to Power Magazine, which is an industry organ, saying that they want TVA to focus on nuclear power, and specifically they want TVA to explore building a whole bunch of small nuclear power plants. It's new designs, small modular plants. In the past, when we built nuclear power plants, it's been stuff like the Watts Bar plant,
Yeah.
which is an enormous piece of infrastructure. But it's like 1 million homes worth of, you can run 1 million homes off that atomic pile.
Really?
Right? Yeah. It's just so big. But that also means that there's a lot of really dangerous material that is concentrated in one spot.
Yeah.
The idea behind the smaller, modular reactors is that they'll be safer because there's not enough stuff can go wrong.
Yeah.
Not as much stuff can go wrong.
Right.
And you can build them. You can build them as needed in different communities. Right. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, except for the whole solar thing, because solar has become so cheap now, and we can power this entire civilization with wind and solar and batteries. It's possible to do now, okay, and we should be doing it. But I actually don't have we just have to make sure that we know how to store the energy. And there's lots of ways to do that beyond chemical batteries too. There's gravity batteries. There's a lot of ways to do it. And so that's where we're at. The good news about nuclear is no greenhouse gas emissions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's the good news. That's why I'm saying I'm not against I'm against anything that adds more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere right now.
Yeah.
Because we are screwed. Okay. Right now, the greenhouse gases are the highest. The carbon dioxide content is the highest it has ever been recorded in human history. It has not been this much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere for 2 or 3 million years.
Wow.
At least. Okay. So.
Did the dinosaurs do that, or is that us?
No, it was volcanoes.
But on those batteries too, man. If only there was somebody in Memphis that had a lot of money and knew about battery technology.
If only that we had an investor who was into that kind of thing.
We'll figure it out, I suppose. Before we leave that, you're a science guy, so nuclear, no qualms about it?
I no, actually not.
Really?
I mean, qualms. The qualm, as far as like how much harm it's going to do or what the environmental costs are. There's mining involved because you got to get the uranium, right?
It's uranium,
right? But you don't have, but it's not as much.
Okay.
Right? Because people are like, oh, there's all these environmental costs to making all these batteries, but we have to get the lithium, we have to get the cobalt and stuff.
Yeah.
But that pales in comparison to how much mining and extraction we're doing for fossil fuels.
Right.
If we eliminated fossil fuels, we would eliminate at least something like 15% of the entire of all the cargo ships because they're just carrying oil around.
Wow.
And like it takes of all the fossil fuels that we produce, we spend something like 25% of those just making more fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's not been sustainable for a long time, and in a planet with 8.5 billion people, it's much less sustainable now. Yeah. But getting back to nuclear, yes, there's mining involved, but it absolutely pales in comparison to how much mining and extraction is involved in fossil fuels.
Yeah.
There have been accidents in the history of nuclear power, some big ones. Chernobyl, of course, which is a design that nobody's ever doing again.
Yeah.
As far as a reactor. Fukushima Daiichi in Japan, which was a combination of a natural disaster and bad design too. But 3 Mile Island, nobody died at 3 Mile Island. Fukushima, there were deaths at the initial tsunami, but not so much afterwards. It's a big old mess, and people are not gonna be able to live on that land for a long time.
Yeah.
But compared to the harm with throwing greenhouse gases into the air, like I did when I drove over here this morning.
Right.
Same. It's not as bad. I mean, it's all trade-offs. Life is all a trade-off. And if people tell you that there's something for free and there's not going to be a trade-off, they're selling something and they're probably a fascist.
And nuclear's worked out fine for The Simpsons.
Yeah, man. It is support. Look, nuclear supported a family of 5. Right. On one job for 35 years. Okay? Because that's completely realistic.
Absolutely.
I love that about The Simpsons, that it was actually a joke in 1989 that it was like, oh, that there was still like a one income nuclear family. Like, it wasn't practical then. It was part of the joke that they were still doing this, that they were still able to do this because it was like parodying like the honeymooners and stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And now it's just like completely inconceivable for modern audiences to look at, like, she doesn't have a job? What the hell?
Right. At least is she like an Instagram famous or something? Like, bring in some money, Marge.
I think they did retcon it later on, like in one of the later seasons, that she's like the Bouvier family that she came from is actually like super rich, and she's been papering over like Homer's idiocy this entire time. But anyways, so it's actually good news on Earth Day, for our Earth Day issue. It's fairly good news. We're going to get some more solar generation, and who knows what the future holds with TVA, but who knows what the future holds with anything.
That's
right?
Exactly right. And honestly, when I saw this in the rack this morning, I thought this was a story about the pyramid. But
yes, me too.
Anyway,
me too. But no, those are the solar panels out at
the
Ag
Farms?
Center. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
So that's what we got in the cover. What were you writing about this week?
Well, this week was week that was. Of course, we looked back on the previous week, and so I had some stuff in there about those bad storms that came through, and that seems like a life ago, but it was terrifying and all that. And
we got 14.5 inches of rain in 4 days, and the normal rain totals for Memphis, the average rain totals for Memphis for April is about 5 inches.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
And it all happened within like 24, 36 hours, something like that. It was insane.
And wouldn't want to be living up north of here in like Obion County and stuff like that. They've had some really bad flooding, but we did manage to escape all of that without much hardship. So we're thankful for that.
And the story that I did in here was there's a group called Mississippi River Towns, Mississippi River Mayors, Towns, and Cities Initiative. And it's really just a group of mayors up and down the Mississippi River. I think it's a great group. They've done really, really good work. They lobby Congress to get money for resiliency projects, for things just like this. And they kind of reported on what happened up and down. Over in West Memphis, we know that boats had to go in and rescue like 100 people, right?
Yeah.
And in Memphis, we had some trees down, a lot of flooding and stuff like that, but nobody got hurt. Other communities, they said nothing happened at all. So it was arranged. We've got a story about that in there.
I think we were fortunate that the river was not high.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
That gave us some slack.
It did. And if you drive over it now, I mean, it was supposed to crest at like 35 feet, and you drive over it now, and it's big and full in Memphis, but then you look at the Arkansas floodplain over there, it goes for miles and miles and miles. I was driving over there this week, and it's kind of beautiful when you're driving back at night, and you can see the city, just mirrored in all this water and stuff. It's gorgeous. But that's the reason they don't build anything over there, right? You can't even farm over there. And so if you've ever ridden your bike on the other side, all that's flooded. But we're on the bluff, so the bluff saved us.
That's the reason that people lived here for 13,000 years.
That's right. Other stuff in here. We've got some public officials that were being really spicy on the internet. I'll say it that way. And the first,
are you saying that Memphis politicians are acting up?
And they're doing it in public. Can you believe that?
In public.
Yeah.
Who could have foreseen this?
It's a shock. The first one was a little weird. We had Memphis Shelby County Schools board member Tawana Murphy. Somebody got in her DMs and was saying just rude stuff about how she'd handled school stuff, and they
have not covered themselves in glory. Let's just say
they have not. Yeah, and so the person, she just said, "Baby, be quiet. I'll have you deported." That was not a good look. And then also over here, Senator Brent Taylor, if you know that guy, he's gotten really loud the last little bits here, and so Dan Conway over there at the Daily Memphian, he was all mean to Mr. Taylor, and the newspaper said some stuff about him being a gadfly.
Did Senator Taylor have a sad?
Yeah, and he was like, oh, and so he came after old Dan Conway and said this, if I can read it here. Taylor issued a libtard alert, and he called Conway a pompous, elitist, leftist, left-wing clown suffering from Taylor derangement syndrome. I mean, it sounds just like a Trump tweet, you know?
Yeah.
But
Right down to referring to yourself in third person, which is
yeah.
always a healthy thing for a politician to do.
Yep, and so Taylor couldn't stop himself. He went on a little bit and said, "A dog gets more useful information sniffing the ass of another dog than you reading a Dan Conway column." That's it. That's the whole thing.
Well, I don't
And
know how much information is transmitted through the sniff, but the
it's
Dan Conway columns are fairly informationally dense, from my experience.
they do a good job.
Yeah.
That's just come on, guys. Be grown ups. Be statesmen. Be stateswomen. You know, I don't
What
know.
happened to being grown-ups,
I
man?
don't know. It's ridiculous. Also, Kalen Johnson reported on. We've got that group of experts in there, kind of trying to get MATA on the right path.
We all want that.
Transportation pun, and they finally got a hold of that American Express card that was being used for all kinds of crazy stuff. So they're going through that to see what's there. What they're trying to do now is that they're going to try to stop the bleeding, and then try to like right size the service, and so they get a big job ahead of them. I had a story in here, just really kind of a reaction piece from all kinds of different people. The Senate passed that bill that would kick, that would let local schools keep out undocumented kids,
Yeah.
and so it was everybody from small business to clergy to everybody, and other state senators on that. I think my favorite quote from there came from London Lamar. It was Senator London Lamar here from Memphis, and she said they had a big news conference after the vote, and she said, "Did you forget Jesus was an immigrant? Did you forget?" I mean, it was pretty emotional, but kind of right press conference, I say anyway, but so we'll see how that goes. And so speaking of seeing how things go, I wrote last week that the Tennessee House, they voted to ban THCA products, and so these are. You know more about this than I do, and I cover this stuff. But so this is really like smokable flower, and so you roll that up, and then when you light it, there's a process called decarbonization. There we go, I got that right. And
Just say decarb.
Thank you. And so when it gets burned, then that transforms that THCA into real THC. So it's
Delta 9 THC.
Delta 9 THC, and so that it gets you high, right? So these folks, House members, they just don't like that. They don't like walking into a store and seeing that bud laying out there. I don't know if it's like they think it's jazz cabbage or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
They want some good American whiskey there.
They want American whiskey there, because that's so much better. But so it was kind of a surprise amendment that came on the floor, the brought by this guy, and House members, they started really talking openly about the marijuana cannabis issue in Tennessee. The guy who brought the bill that would allow cannabis in Tennessee in the first place, he was like, "I was duped. I was lied to." This group, they said, "Okay, well, the Farm Bill allows it. This is going to make a new market." He thought they were getting this non-intoxicating hemp juice, and that's what they thought it was going to be. And of course, you get these weed scientists. They go out there, start picking all the cannabinoids out of there, and they make some stuff that'll get you high, right?
Yeah.
And that's when the market took off. By the state's own numbers, that market's $120 to $200 million right now, only to grow and grow. So they brought
and taxed,
yeah, and a lot of, millions of dollars. But this guy brought up this amendment that said let's ban THCA, and there's House leaders that have been working on this issue for a long time. They kept trying to roll it to the back to be like, "What are you doing? Stop this amendment. We're going to let this go."
Because we're talking 7 years at this point, right?
Yes. And so even Representative Kevin Vaughn, a Republican from Memphis, he was like, "Look, I get these products. I don't think anybody loves them here, in the House, but they're out there, and we're going to tell these folks that that you can have these products, and then we're going to yank the rug out from under them." He's like, "I get both sides here." He's like, "We've already promised them they can have these. It's already on the shelves." But that got shot down.
And people build businesses around it.
That's exactly right. And so we're recording this Thursday morning. I just left. The Senate bill on this they were talking about it as I left. So right now we don't know how the Senate's going to vote on this. Their version of the bill had that ban in it going all the way. So unless they come up with an amendment to take it out, we could see a THCA ban. I don't know. So watch the stores out there, folks, or watch the flyer too. We'll let you know probably today, tomorrow.
We cover these issues.
What's going on? We know our leaders love that stuff. So there was a ton of news. There's a ton of stuff we've been watching out here. Get quickly through here. We got a ton of stuff in our stepping out section. Look at our calendar. As I like to say, if you're bored, it's your own fault. Pick up the flyer.
Absolutely.
And Alex Green wrote about Cake coming to town, which is really cool.
The band, not the dessert.
Maybe they'll have both. You never know. But you wrote, and I want to see this movie so bad. Michael Donahue went to the Tattoo Festival. You can see that there. Interesting stuff. And so you wrote about Sinners, right?
Yeah, man. Sinners. First of all, let me tell you that it has a strong Memphis connection.
Yeah.
A lot of the music was recorded at Royal Studios with Boo Mitchell. Yeah. And it is a movie by Ryan Coogler, who did Black Panther.
Okay.
Was the director of Black Panther, and Michael B. Jordan is in it.
Yeah.
Who was Killmonger in Black Panther, and who's been in all of Coogler's movies, like throughout his career, from going back to Fruitvale Station, which was a Sundance hit in like 2015 maybe, I think, because he's from Oakland.
Okay.
Coogler's from Oakland, and I think Jordan is from California too. But they were old friends, and so. The setup is that it is 1933, the year that TVA was founded.
TVA year. How about that?
Right.
Synergy.
No, I'm sorry, wrong. 1932. It's October of 1932, so it's the month before Hoover's still president. It's the month before Roosevelt is elected, and the Depression is in full swing. We've still got Prohibition, too, and these two twins, the Smokestack twins, Smoke and Stack, who are both played by Michael B. Jordan.
Fun.
Right? And then before you ask, yes, they fight. It's a great scene.
Love it.
Great scene, yes. And they are coming back to Clarksdale, Mississippi.
Uh-huh.
They had been in Chicago working for the Capone mob, right? And they roll into town with a truck full of booze, and they're throwing cash around, and they start this juke joint, and they get all these players to come. Yep. And one of them, this kid named Sammy, who's a newcomer, has never been in a movie before. I cannot remember the actor's name because he's never been in a movie before. He is a blues player, and it turns out he plays the blues so good that he's actually like part of an ancient shamanic tradition, that the music will rend the veil between us, our world, and the spirit world.
Well, that took an unexpected turn, folks. I didn't see that one coming.
Oh, there's so many more unexpected turns.
Yeah.
The vampires. Did I mention the vampires?
No, sir. I saw it in the headline, though.
Because they're vampires.
Sweet.
So they have this big party, and he rends the veil, and the vampires of Mississippi are like, oh, man, somebody's rending the veil. We got to get in on that action. So the vampires come and try to break in, and it becomes like a siege thing.
Cool.
Like a zombie movie kind of siege thing. Yeah. And then there's like bits of The Thing in there too. Whoa. Where they have to are you a vampire? They have to decide who's a vampire. And man, it's great. Great film. I saw it with a preview audience, and it kicked all kinds of ass.
Fun.
It slayed in that room.
That's incredible.
So highly, highly recommend. This is Memphis Flyer Podcast. I'm Chris McCoy.
I'm Toby Sells.
We'll see you next week.